Well, it's about the end of August here, and I haven't made a whole lot of progress on projects I originally wanted to, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like uh, some of that isn't just me being lazy. Again, my efforts get directed first and foremost towards my actual teaching, which I don't have to do over the summer, but I do have to do prep work, and uh, I also need to sort of recharge a bit over the summer. But I don't know. It's also a question of like, I started doing this because I have a lot of opinions, and eventually sort of shifted gears because I felt like you know, would like to share my ideas, but share ideas where I actually, know what I'm talking about and have some expertise, and I still do want to do that, but there are so many things going on that are so potentially disastrous or already disastrous in many cases that it's kind of hard to just be like, oh, here's how blank works. And it's like, I do still think that, a sort of a better informed public, and especially a public that's well versed in the scientific method itself and as such is able to sort of conduct their own research, uh, improves the state of the world. But I don't know. Like, especially because, like, I mean, I am by profession a physicist, but one of the things I love most and talk about most is aviation. Especially a lot of the aviation I think about is wrapped up in military aviation. I think plenty about civil aviation too, but it's kind of hard to, I don't know. Not that it's stopped me from just playing video games like DCS or whatever, but it's kind of hard to be like, oh, here's how this, cool technology that's used in this particular weapon system works. When like it's a lot easier when those weapons are just kind of sitting on a shelf, and they're just there for, the what if scenarios and purely as a deterrent, and a very sort of far removed deterrent where, you know, possibility of ever using them seems very remote. But it's not the situation we're in right now. We're in a very precarious collection of bad situations where it's not really any one thing. It's this sort of broader trend in the sort of global zeitgeist towards I am trying to avoid sounding like the various cringe people that I often criticize, but there is almost this global struggle of good versus evil, but it's not the good guys and the bad guys. In fact, one of the surest ways to commit acts of evil is to convince yourself that you are the good guys, and anything you do to stop the bad guys is justified. But I don't know. I Everybody kind of has their own system of ethics and what they consider to be good, but there does just seem to be something about wanting to impose your will on others that's wrong. Um, and there's a increasing trend of people embracing that, and that's why I'm trying to avoid making too many references to explicit political factions. But like, I mean, it's not like I, you know, I clearly despise Donald Trump and all of his lackeys, but of course he is, in my mind, just a symptom of a much larger problem. sort of strong men, and in some cases, actual dictators are on the rise around the world. But I did, it's like, I will say, like, when everybody was talking about the interactions between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, where they were like, Elon is secretly in charge, and I was like, uh, well, don't get me wrong, I think Elon is the worst sellout that ever was. And I always think back to well, it turns out that America's Next Top Model was actually very problematic in retrospect, but that meme of Tyra Banks, shouting at that one girl, being like, "We were all rooting for you. How dare you?" Or it's just like, man, he had everything going for him, and he just threw it all away again because he succumbed to that ultimate temptation to try to lord over others and you know make them do what you want, uh, instead of just trying to do good things. Uh, I don't know, but oh yes, that's what I was saying though, is that there's I don't draw too much philosophy from Lord of the Rings, but there's that one line I always quote, right, where it's at least in the film versions, right, it's Gandalf is about to you know escape from the the Sauron, uh, and but of course Sauron thinks that if he bides his time and is enough of a sycophant, he'll you know get favoritism from Sauron, and he'll get to rule over his little sector. And of course, in the back of his head, he's thinking of ways he could eventually depose Sauron and become the ruler of Middle Earth himself. Then Gandalf, as he's flying away, says there is only one Lord of the Rings, and he does not share power. Right? Is like you make a deal with the devil, and you always get the same thing, which is butt kiss. you know, where it's like Elon clearly thought that, I mean, he correctly realized that Donald Trump is in many ways not very smart, but he massively overplayed his own hand in so many ways. And he forgot where his actual support came from in the first place, where it's like none of the MAGA people are going to buy Teslas, Um, and so, like, he yeah he thought that if he made it if he thought that if he got close to the strong man that he could pull the strings. So that's definitely what Elon thought was going to happen, is what everybody's saying. We're like, oh, Elon is secretly in charge. It's like, I'm sure that's what he expected, but of course what happened is anything but, because that's the thing about wanting to be the impose your will on others, right? Is that you always sort of make a deal. You can never quite do it because there's always a bigger fish. And then so you say, okay, well, I'll make this temporary deal with this person until later I betray them and take all the power, and inevitably, right, is like they betray you, and you don't get what you were expecting. Or even if you do succeed, then eventually you realize you can't do it on your own, and you bring in your own sort of underlings, and then eventually one of them betrays you and ends up, and the cycle repeats. Um, you know, uh, and I don't know. This is all played out many, many, many times throughout human history, and it's not like these are new concepts, but there does seem to be an ebb and flow with time, where there's periods of relative peace and stability where people kind of live and let live, and it's not like everything's all honky dory. There are still atrocities that are committed even in the best of times, but then there are times when that sort of will to power is on the rise, and I don't know. It's like, what do you do about it? Because the entire problem stems from a desire to force other people to do your will. But by the same token, it's like, how do you stop them, right? It's like, because power is, by definition, the capacity to alter things in the universe, right? So how do you stop, you know, how do you then stop those things without power, right? And in fact, one of the things I spend a lot of time philosophizing and sometimes writing about is like, what's the difference between power and agency? And it's like, on some level, there isn't a difference. It's, purely a difference of connotation. but I don't think it's totally meaningless. Generally, think of agency as being sort of just power over your own life, and power itself is a broader term, which usually includes at least attempts to exert power and influence over others. Uh, and It would be a lot simpler if it was just as long as you live and let be, everybody else does the same. But of course, there's always someone that is going to try to take over, and it's like, what do you do? It's like there is a certain point where, yeah, the answer is to just sort of fight fire with fire, but there's always consequences to that too, right? Even if you look at World War II, where no denying there was the only way to stop the you know various uh, malevolent forces of the German bad guys and the Japanese bad guys. Although again, see problems with saying the bad guys, but it's because you can't say the. I guess you can say the Imperial Japanese military, but you can't say the name of the entity that was in charge of Germany on YouTube, can you? Which that's kind of its own thing. It's not like I'm monetized, but I don't know. It's just almost become part of the culture that you can't say, ease on backwards on YouTube, right? Um, so I don't know. How long is this gonna? Not too bad. It's only 12 minutes. I don't know. I should really work on my project about jet engines and whatnot, but it's like, again, like I was gonna explain how sort of solid fuel ramjets work, and those are used almost exclusively in missiles that are, you know, weapons of war, and they're necessary to have, but during peacetime, it's a lot easier to sort of nerd out about the technical details of how they work, because they're just kind of there sitting on standby in case we need them. But of course, as long as you have them, the temptation to use them offensively exists, right? And I don't know. And I haven't even addressed the thing that really always has me on edge, which is the existence of nuclear weapons. Uh, because ironically, that's one of the few things that Donald Trump ever got right, but it's also one of the number one reasons that I would never want him to be the president, even though he, of course, is. Although I did everything in my very limited power to stop him, which consisted of, giving $20 to the opposition campaign and voting against him, so, which made no difference because I live in California. Uh, I don't know. It sometimes feels like people have forgotten just how dangerous nuclear weapons actually are. They're it, it is a myth that nuclear war would cause the extinction of the species. Well, it's a myth that it would cause the immediate extinction of the species. In all probability, humans would hang on for at least a while, you know, most likely on the order of decades. Um, but if we managed to rebuild at all, it would take, centuries to return to anything like what the world we know today as existing. Um, some amount of technology would. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's probably my boss getting back to me. Well, oh, actually, no, it's not. I'm trying to. Well, I don't really have much of a boss, but the person in charge of different stuff at the college. That's anyways. Uh, uh, it. Anyways, nuclear war definitely could cause the extinction of humanity. It most likely would not, but it would sort of catapult us into a age of tremendous misery that would last for quite some time. Modern technology would not be completely lost, but modern society with all the sort of principles of liberalism and stuff like that would go out the window, and you'd go right, like people talk now about sort of techno feudalism, and don't get me wrong, that's something that concerns me immensely, but that would we would just revert back to sort of different warlords that, I mean, the king is a king is just the great great grandson of a warlord, right? That's all there really is to it. um, and we'd have different you know factions vying for survival that would eventually coalesce into strongly hierarchical and, in many ways, quite miserable societies, which the Middle Ages in Europe weren't that bad, to be honest, but I mean, there's no denying that they were pretty rough to be a peasant in medieval Europe. Uh, I don't know. And not to mention, nuclear war very much could result in the extinction of humanity. It kind of depends on, in some sense, quite literally how the wind blows and how much fallout gets carried where, and how much damage that does to various ecosystems. And I mean, 90%, 90, 20% of humanity would be wiped out during the nuclear exchange itself, and then 90% of humanity, so I guess, another 70% until 90% of humanity total is dead, would happen within a couple of years. And then, less than 10% of humanity would survive. But that could very much dwindle to zero. More likely, it would stay at a relatively low level for several years and then slowly start climbing back up, which the small population isn't in and of itself the problem, but the collapse of societies as we know them would be, which I don't know. Again, like, I want to, just think about it. I'm historically, well, over the course of my life, I have been very much of a sort of, technological optimist, but a lot of, what used to be the ideas that I believed in have been sort of co-opted by tech bros, right? And I still believe in that the truth shall set you free, right? I still believe in science, and I believe in the ability of technology to make human life better. Um, but it is definitely the case that technology is just a tool, right? And tools, coming back to the idea of power, make us more powerful. And, with great power comes great responsibility. And we're always kind of, children playing with knives and matches, right? Where we vastly uh, we're always going too fast for our own good, and it's like I've spent my life trying to better understand the universe in the hopes of you know uh, trying to make technologies that will make human life better, and also just because I think that the universe is a remarkable place and there's just a tremendous joy in understanding it. But of course, I've learned that uh, people will find a way to misuse every technology, and what I try to have faith in is that there's something about humanity and about the universe at large that just wants things to be good, that wants to, grant agency and freedom to others, and to, make people happy, and uh, not try to misuse the power that comes with knowledge of the universe. But I don't know. We seem to live in particularly trying times where we're going in exactly the wrong direction. Uh, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. If I had a solution, I would be doing it. It's a lot of technologies that have the promise of making it easier for people to do what they want in their own lives, while making it harder for people to control others. There's also just a lot of technology that's coming online that's fixing problems, right? Like, for all of the doom and gloom about climate change, I don't want to say that we don't have to keep trying, but renewable energy is now unstoppable, right? And don't get me wrong, plenty of various lobbyists for petroleum industry have done their best uh, to stop it. Um, well, actually, they don't actually care how much solar power there is. They care that energy prices stay as high as possible, so that their product stays as expensive as possible. Um, but part of that is suppressing anything that would make energy cheaper. But of course, society benefits tremendously from energy being as cheap as possible, and it's hard to beat having a $0 fuel bill. And so much solar and wind comes online every year. And we still have a lot of problems to solve. We need to figure out better ways to do grid storage. We probably need something to run as our base load. I'm not going to get into the discussion of nuclear power. Um, I that it has the potential to cover that sort of aspect of our energy needs to sort of cover our base load for us. But there's a lot of economics and logistics and politics, and uh, there's always this coming back to nuclear weapons. There's always the weapons proliferation risk to consider, um, which that's kind of the real problem in nuclear energy. It's like dealing with the waste is actually a lot easier than you'd think. And I don't mean stashing it all in Yucca Mountain. I mean, the volume of high level waste is so small you can honestly just keep it at the plant, which is what they do right now. And it actually works surprisingly well. But that's not the problem. The problem is the weapons proliferation risk. Spent fuel is very toxic, but it's small enough in volume that especially if you reprocess it, you can really not have to bury that much waste. But the problem is that nuclear waste also contains weapons grade plutonium, uh, so that is a much harder problem to deal with. Um, so, anyways, um, yeah, I don't know, man. I just got to do the best I can with what I've got, which is continue to be a loser and doing whatever I can do. Uh, I guess I will continue teaching students and try to provide them with the tools to make the world a better place, whilst also doing what I can to do so directly myself. Although uh, I don't have a whole lot at the moment. I'm no longer employed at a research laboratory, although don't get me wrong, I love teaching and I love my job. Um, and maybe it's for the best that I only contribute to technology if I know for sure that it's going to be in the public domain, and if I know that technology is going to be lend itself more readily to good than bad things. Because every technology is a tool, but definitely some tools are better used for good, and some tools are better used for evil. Um, so it's always ultimately up to the people who use the tool what they decide to do with it. But you can definitely make it harder to do bad things and easier to do good things. So I don't know. Anyways, really, it's just I haven't gotten the jet engine projects done because I'm lazy. But also, there's a lot going on. So I don't know. It's uh, it's what used to be the motto. I'll just leave you with what used to be the model of Google until they reconsolidated into Alphabet, which is why they are no longer trustworthy. And they're another place that I used to root for, and now they have sold their soul for, well, money. But yeah, way back when, the motto of Google used to be very simply, don't be evil. Good words to live by. Kind of a shame they gave up on them, but I don't want to. Bye.